Hi, I'm Brenda and welcome to Phoenix Furniture Studio. In today's video, we're going to be taking these broken tambour doors that are currently being held together with duct tape, and we're going to give these a full refinish and repair. To begin with, I needed to remove the backing from the cocktail cabinet so that I could get to the tambour doors and remove them. The back's off now, and you can see just how badly these need to be repaired. That's just all held on. I don't know if you can see, by black tape. That's some material there, and then the rest has got tape here, duct tape there, and that's all duct tape. So those are going to need to be completely pulled apart and redone. Okay, that's that bit out. Now to get the rest of it. There we go. Now I'm just checking if there's some sort of continuous wood grain pattern in these tambour doors that we need to follow, and it doesn't look like it. So it could be that they have been repaired and stuck together in the incorrect order. So once they're all individual and taken apart, we can see if there's some sort of wood grain pattern we should be following. Right, now all that yucky duct tape is gone, so next step is to get the old backing off. It's a fabric. As you can see, on some of them the glue has completely dried out, so it is easy to remove, but on some of them the fabric is too deteriorated to pull it off cleanly. I think my next port of call, my next action, is going to be to get a scraper and try and scrape the backing off each of these. There's one thing I'm going to attempt before I go in with the scraper, is I'm going to lay some paper towel down, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour some mineral spirits over the paper towel so it soaks in, and leave those for 5-10 minutes to see if that softens up the backing and the glue, what's left of the glue that's attaching it. So what this tissue is doing is just soaking in that white spirit and holding it in place over the tambour so that it can soak in. So let's leave that for 10 minutes and see what happens. It might not do anything, or it might do something. Hopefully something. I ended up leaving this soaking for about half an hour, so let's see what difference it's made, if any. So some of it appears to be coming off a little easier. So I think what I'll do is I'll pull up what I can, and then I'll pop the soaked tissue paper back on and see if I can't get it a bit more loose. Let that really soak in. These have had plenty of time soaking now, so I don't think there's much more that leaving them under the tissue is going to do. There, so with the scraper it's getting the last of the glue and also the backing off. It's going to take me forever and a day to try and scrape these. So to try and save some time, I'm going to try and sand the back, which I know is going to kill my sandpaper. But with my Festool Rotex, I think it might be a lot quicker, and for me, speed is more important. So I'm going to make a little jig to put these into to keep them secure. I'm just going to use these. They come off the back of a dressing table and they hold the mirror. So I normally keep things like this hanging around the workshop because I know I'll be able to use them at some point for a project. So I'm just going to take all of these screws and metal bits out. So I want something for them to be pushed up against this way. And then we need something for them to push up against. So I'll pop that there. Okay, that didn't quite work how I expected it to, so I might just go through each piece, take off what I can, scrape what I can, and then sand what I can, and then whatever's left after that is staying because that is not coming off. Now that I've gone through the arduous task of removing the backing, I'm going through and stripping the old finish from the front of the tambour slats. I'm just using a chemical stripper, and once I've let that sit for 10 minutes, I'm going through with some 4-0 steel wool and some white spirit to remove all the chemical stripper and any remaining varnish. Once those are fully dried, I then sanded them with 120 grit sandpaper and gave them a couple of coats of Fiddy's hard wax oil in satin. What you see me doing here is fitting all the Tambour slats into that jig. And what that jig does is it keeps the slats in a straight line and pushes them together. What you find with vintage Tambour slats is that they've warped over time, so you're probably never going to get them to be perfectly flush when sitting next to each other like you would for brand new cut Tambour slats. So I've pushed them down and got them as close together as possible, and then I'm just using this masking tape to secure them in place, so once I remove them from the jig they're going to stay as they are. I'm just taping off the very end parts of the Tambour slats that slide through the grooves because I don't want any glue to get on those parts. I'm using Gorilla Glue, wood glue, and a roller to roll a thin layer of glue onto the slat. And the reason I'm using a microfiber roller is to minimize the amount of glue that's going to squeeze down in between each of the slats. As I said, with vintage slats, it's likely that they've probably warped a little, there might be some damage, so you are probably going to have glue squeeze out. To minimize that, using a microfiber roller will help. I've then laid down a twill canvas fabric over the glue, and now I'm rolling each individual slat with this mini roller to really press that down into the glue and make sure there's good adhesion. The fabric is very important for tambour doors. I chose a twill canvas fabric because the fibres in the fabric go at a diagonal, which makes it a much stronger fabric, and the canvas fabric is generally the standard choice for tambour doors. It's got good flexibility to allow the doors to move and roll, but it is also a good strong fabric. When drying, I've just placed them one on top of each other with plastic sheeting in between so that they don't stick to each other, and then I've popped a very heavy table on top of them so that they dry flat. After about 24 hours, I've flipped them over. They feel really good. The fabric's adhered really well to the back of the slat, so I've removed the masking tape. Here you can see I'm just rolling the tambour up and it's moving really nicely. Going in between each of the slats and scraping out any of the little bits of glue that may have squeezed out. This is a really important detail because you'll see that when you're rolling the doors. Here I'm using 180 grit sandpaper to again just do the sanding between each of those slats and give a scuff sand on each of the slats because I will be going over with one more coat of finish to seal it in. Once I finished sanding, I did a quick spritz of white spirit and wiped that down to get rid of all that sanding dust. Here I'm cutting off the excess fabric with a Stanley knife. And you can see where I taped off the edges there. It's just really easy to pull it back, and then you can use that line to cut the fabric. Now I did dye this canvas fabric. This was originally white and I used a pink fabric dye. So if you want a different colour backing for your tambour doors, a really good idea is to buy a white canvas fabric and just dye it whichever colour you want. I know people like to use black canvas fabric as well, because then you don't see the glue lines in between the slats when you open the doors and look inside, which you did slightly on this pink fabric and you would on most colours. I sliced just a little too much fabric away there, but it's fine. I'll just pull it off and tidy it up. I have just a very small amount of oil on my brush to minimize the amount that's going to seep through to the fabric underneath. I would definitely recommend that you refinish your slats before you get to the stage of the fabric. It's a lot easier to apply just one final finishing coat than it would be to try and refinish all the slats once they are glued together. Here I'm tidying up the edges, so just using a ruler to cut a couple of mil off the end of each slat, and then I'm going to seal that in with some wood glue so that it doesn't fray over time, and that will just give a really nice finished edge to your doors. Just using a candle here and rubbing along the bottom with the wax so that it slides more easily through the grooves. And I'm doing this on the top and the bottom. Time for them to get fitted back in. And you see they're moving a lot better there, much smoother. Reattach the handles, and there you've got some beautifully repaired vintage tambour doors. Would you attempt to repair tambour doors if you'd never done it before? This was my first time repairing it, and as long as you go step by step and have a bit of patience, it's really not too difficult. So drop a comment below, and thanks for watching.